So I knew that there was an opportunity for me to make money while I'm partying. Guess what? And that just became, the entryway to failure.
The Move Entrepreneur Evolved Podcast. Get on it.
And we're back. Another episode of the Moved Entrepreneur Evolved Podcast. I'm excited today. We're going to be talking about automations. We're talking about chatbots. We're going to be talking about all kinds of stuff. We're also going to be talking about a lot of stories in the past that got us there. Today is brought to you by what's called our Moved 30 Entrepreneur Strong. It is a momentum system for business owners to level up. I am excited today to introduce you to the man, Danny Monzon. How you doing, dude?
Hey, Jason, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the invitation. I am ready. I've been looking forward to this conversation the entire day.
That's cool, man. That's cool. Where are you out of right now?
So right now I am in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm at the home that I've been sharing with my housemate now for a few months with my old pup and my new pup. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, but I'm originally from New York City. That's where I grew up. But I was born before that in Latin America, in a country in the north of South America called Colombia. That's where I was born.
That is very cool, man. Colombia has always been a place that I'd love to go to. It looks like a fascinating place, a lot of history. I think that'd be really cool to go back there. So the journey, though, took you to a lot of different things, right? Took you into business, kind of took you to different things. And a lot of the stuff that we talk about here on Moved, and a lot of the people that follow us here, is we'd like to talk about the journey of how we got here. And then we like to talk of some skills that we've acquired. I did notice that you had mentioned you were in New York. There's a lot going on in New York, isn't there, right now?
Oh, man, so many things, not just right now, but when I got there, right? So again, the journey takes me to New York City back in 1990. That's when I arrived to New York as a teenager. I was 12. But as a young boy from Colombia, knew very little English, but I was just so happy to be riding my skateboard in the streets of Queens, New York. Do you remember Coming to America? That's the scene where Queens, and it's cold and they're lighting fires in the alleyways.
Yeah.
Well, that is not so far-fetched to the type of environment where I grew up.
Wow. Was it in an environment of, finding solutions to things and kind of fast pace? Was it very fast paced? Oh, very, very interesting. And did that start any kind of entrepreneurial? Were you around business owners as a young guy?
So not at all. I was involved, or did I grow up in a family where business was our pedigree or our bloodline? Totally the opposite, right? So the reason why my parents agreed to relocate from Colombia to New York, of course, late 80s, I'm not as young as I look. So late 80s, there was a lot of unrest in Colombia, and things were getting very, very hard. So my family decided, you know what, we're not gonna raise our kids here. And me and my brother, he's 5 years younger. So they decided, let's go up north, right? Where the American dream, this lifestyle where things could be possible. And so we did, right? So a lot of things were happening back then. A lot of unknowns, right? A lot of changes, like the school environment. Now it was different, and all the challenges and opportunities that came about. So yeah, New York City ain't no city like it.
No, I don't think so, man. I don't think that there is. Did you end up evolving through business and at an age there in New York? Did you find yourself maybe doing some kind of any form of transaction at a young age?
Yeah, yes. I'm glad you mentioned this. because it's not every time that I get to, rewind and really, reconnect with that, with those moments, right? So some of the moments, they weren't aha moments. I have this idea and I'm going to make money. They were more like, oh, shoot, my mom is not going to give me no money to go out with my girl or to, to rock the nice starter hat or the nice, Nike Air, whatever shoes that were in style, right? Now it was me saying, I got to make some money. Right. I'm the oldest guy, in the household. Right. My dad, he stayed behind. But so I was the older brother, and I saw the need. Right. I saw the need to make money, and I saw opportunity. Right. So shoveling snow in the winter. We didn't like the snow as much as the kids, maybe across the train tracks did, because we would work, right? So we would like the snow, not to go play and take, pictures and, build a snowman, but we would get to make money, right? We would get to go to the nice neighborhoods and say, hey, kind of shovel your driveway and put a price tag to it and do that in the wintertime. And in the summertime, you're going to laugh at this, the baseball cards. I mean, a lot of us kids in New York were trading baseball cards. We understood how some pieces of cardboard with a good baseball player meant, a few $100, maybe a little more than that, things that were like, whoa. Then I started realizing that there's an opportunity here to make some money, to trade some cards, in the summertime, and sneak into Shea Stadium, and also in the wintertime to make some money shoveling snow. So that was my early beginnings. It's let's
really
make some money the honest way.
Listening to your story, there's a couple things here, and I've been working with current clients and talking with them about these two things. And I think there's a great example here that's happening. One is, I had someone tell me that, how do you explain value? And it was an interesting conversation because we all think of things differently, but many times it's a transaction. And the first one that you did had a transaction of, I could solve your problem, right? The first one was, I could actually shovel the snow, and now you're not going to have snow, cold ridden, whatever, icy driveway. So you solve a convenience of time. And so they exchange something of value. I don't know, they probably gave you $3 at the time, right? You're like, I'll take it.
I think it was like more like $20. I don't think we were that cheap.
Dude, you had yourself a good day. All right, good. But they knew that the time for the transaction was worth $20 of time. Then for them to go and do it in exchange. And then the second thing that you had brought up, what I thought was kind of interesting, because they're both two forms of transactions. The second one was baseball cards. And the thing about baseball cards is there's already a perceived, right? You would say a perceived lack of them, right? Scarcity, because there's only so many of them. And then the market dictates what something has of value. And then if somebody they see a little more value than you make the margin in that. And I thought that it was kind of a good opportunity to take those two examples that you did when you were younger, that those are still valid today, and finding, do you have something that is already declared of value and you exchange that for something more of value, maybe a cost of goods. And then the other one is, I could actually labor, or I have a system to save you time. So I thought that was an interesting time. So now you're in a place in your life, you've done those things, you've had some fun with baseball cards, are like the stock market for kids.
You're no kidding.
So then you kind of go into that, and then did you start something after that? Did you go into sales? What was the next piece for you? Did you get educated? What did you do?
No. So my next, I guess we've been salesmen and sales women since the beginning, right? As young human beings, right? As we try to sell our parents into going places, into buying us things, into throwing tantrums, into setting up mom because dad said no. We've been selling stuff, right? So, but again, I wasn't able to quantify, what you just mentioned. I was trading some labor for in an exchange, in a transaction. then the perceived value of a baseball card, those things to this day, they are fundamentals that cannot be debated, right? To this day, crypto is a perceived value, right? And labor, of course, that's the oldest, as far as I understand, exchange of value. So after that, let's see, I was a salesperson without quantifying it this way. I sold my mother, single mom, into I'm quitting school. And that was, let's just say that I just did it and then I sold her into it. Right? And I was not a bad student. I was not the bully, although I got bullied a little bit. And then, growing up, you became, the one who sometimes, stirs up the pot. But I was not the troublemaker or the guy who, got kicked out of school, although I did get kicked out of school, not because of my behavior or my trouble, youth, but because I was not interested in the things they were teaching me. And in my senior year, this was my senior year by all means, because I wasn't interested and I wasn't applying myself, my school said, you know what, we're kicking you out, but we'll give you one more chance, right? So bring your mom, this and that, whatever, we'll give you one more chance. Guess what? I blew my second chance of being, or finishing my senior year. So my mom, she cannot complain anymore, but that was a tough sell for her, as an immigrant from Colombia coming to the United States. It was work hard, get good grades, get a scholarship, make it happen, send money back to Colombia, all those things. And I broke that cycle. But
almost like it was from listening and hearing and learning from you just in your voice. And I think what you're saying is, as a family, as an immigrant family coming here, it was almost like a building block. If you go do this and you do this and you do this, then this is going to be your outcome, and this is where we're going to get to go if we do these things. And with chaos everywhere else, it probably felt good to say, this is all you have to do and we're going to be okay. Go do that shit.
Yeah, imagine that. So my mom, single mom in New York. I'm a teenager now. I'm not 12 or 13. Now I'm 17. I'm requiring a little bit more of guidance, and somewhat I rejected, when that came about. So my mother was concerned, right? My mom was concerned. In my defense, I can quantify now that as the old guy, I was concerned with my mother coming home every single afternoon and counting her tips. Single dollars. She was a waitress. She left a good job in Colombia to come here and wait tables, but she was counting dollars and sometimes cents, every single day. And me as a young boy, the oldest one out of, me and my brother, I said to myself, maybe consciously, maybe subconsciously, I said, you know what? I can make some money out there and help my mom. I can sacrifice, getting in trouble or maybe being, but if I come home with some groceries and my, some nice clothes, nobody's going to question me that. Right? Maybe she did a few times, but in a sense, my little brother, he wanted to go to school. He wanted to go to college. And that also to me was like, you know what, Mom, I can help you pay for my brother's college. That became almost like a selling point, like a selling line to like, holy shit, I freaking just quit school. I better freaking show up with some money. Right. So that was a little bit of that transition. Now I'm in the real world, no high school diploma, a GED. I passed, flying stars because I wasn't a bad student, but now I'm in the real world.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of those experiences. I went through those as well. And then you're in the real world. You make a couple deals. Did you find yourself going after the whole digital experience right away, or did you catch on to that a little bit after AOL?
That was a little bit after, although when AOL, you've got mail, is, and I'm so familiar with the CDs and, that whole, chat room and the connectivity,
CD-ROM.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with that. And so when that came about, I had an interest. I didn't have a computer. I had a girlfriend who had a computer, right? So I used to go to her house and mingle and, hang out with her brother and, kind of like discover chat rooms. And, back then it was ASL, right? Age, sex, location, right? When we were getting to know each other, person to person across, a chat room. I'm very familiar with that. And although I didn't center this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, I did have an interest in that, communication, kind of like, oh, here's where I get to meet some people and maybe even some girls and, some, conversations that I get to nurture, right? I get to have an identity that is not my first name and last name. It's kind of like, it's my nickname and kind of build that persona around that, right? I had a very early interest in that, although I was waiting tables just like my mom, because guess what? Here comes a very eye-opening moment in my life that led me to where I'm at today. I wanted to work. And I soon realized that I could not work a legal job in the United States because I did not have the documentation that allowed me to do so. So I didn't have a visa. I didn't have a social security card. And I was like, oh, I need that stuff.
Wow.
Oh, I came as a tourist to go to Disney World, which I never did. And we got to stay. That was the plan of a lot of families,
Wow.
from, I don't care where in the world you came from, but which I don't condone or I don't, sponsor that ideal nowadays. But that was my story, and I don't blame my parents for doing so. I was out of status. I was like, what? Wow. I can't get a job. I can't even, like, what do you mean? I had to get this, explained to me a few times, even by some friends, like, oh, dude, you got to have a social security. What do you mean you don't have a social security card? No, I don't. So that was a pivotal point to me to say, oh, I can't go and get a job.
Yeah.
I might as well be a job provider or a business owner, right? So guess what? I rented booths at flea markets. Now I'm not the kid trading cards, but I have, maybe a section with baseball cards, a section with comic books, a section with, with ice cold soda, and that's how I made the money, to really, understand the grind, understand rejection, understand dealing, understand, supply and demand, so to speak. Yeah. And then I got me, the jobs that a lot of people in that situation, or even, single moms or students take, right? Wait tables. You get paid cash at the end of the day. You have cash all day, every single day, because you're working on tips. So restaurants, bars, right? And that's when I became acquainted to the club industry of New York City.
Yeah. The evolution that you take, and you obviously you talk about the nightclub and of New York. Obviously, that's the nightlife. But as you went through that process, did you find yourself enjoying communication because of the trail we're chasing right now, as you ended up doing automations and chat and those kind of things? Did you find yourself on this road and journey following communication as something that was part of like this major in your head, I guess you would follow?
Well, in a way, it became, as you know, New York City is probably the advertising mecca of the world, right? In Times Square, I'm not talking about, a little town up north in New York State, but really, the 5 boroughs, right? being just inundated with ads, with with billboards, with even people in the street selling scarves and gloves, or try to scam you, for something, right? I was immersed in that. So in a way, it's like I was not being so aware that, okay, so communications and chat automation is really what I want to steer my ship. Not at all, not at all. But it was mostly I knew now two languages. I never stopped speaking Spanish. In New York City, you have a lot of friends who speak Spanish, and we get to practice a lot more than here in where I am in Florida. But I then understood something. I have a little bit of an advantage where in New York, the dog eat dog world, I'm going to step over you to get to where I want to get, that type of mentality. And as a foreigner, feeling diminished and more diminished and more diminished because of opportunity, bullying, discrimination, whatever it was, plus all these other limiting beliefs that weren't even real in my growing up, I said to myself, well, what am I good at? What can I be good at where some other friends are not good at?
Sure.
And that was translating. Oh, this lady doesn't speak English when she wants to buy something. Oh, let me translate for her. Or vice versa at the hospital. Gotcha. When somebody wanted. So I knew that I knew Spanish, and that which led me to feel out of place and maybe, segregated and ashamed of because I had an accent, became my superpower.
Yeah.
And so
I think that's an interesting thing that you're saying
to be, I wanted to be expressive. I don't know if you have noticed, but I like to express myself the best as I can in both languages without hammering them too much. I love to, expressing myself, writing, lyrics to maybe songs that I never sang or that will never be sang, or poems, or, maybe going through a hard, situation and just put it in writing. I like that expression of self that in a way felt understood, even with myself, in a place where I wasn't being very understood, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And I think that you were probably in a position where you had an asset at that time. And so that allows you to say, wow, people could use me for this asset, which could be in some form of a transaction as well. What brought you into the internet? What brought you into the computer age?
That's where I weave in the, all of these things, right? So the need to express myself, the ability to connect with not only people in Spanish, but also in English. And now I'm being thrown in this environment where I need to make it happen without, papers, but, I just like every, most kids out there in New York found other ways of expressing and I guess masking some pain, right? There were painful moments. There were moments where I missed my dad. There was moments that that I blamed my dad or myself, whatever it was. Sure. And so we found partying, right? So we found like, okay, the going out, the social atmosphere in New York City. There's always something to do in New York City. There's like, sure. If you get bored in New York City, I mean, there's something special with you. But there was always something to do. And in that realm of like, what, I'm going to go and I'm going to, that's when I started drinking, maybe a little bit, behind schedule or ahead of schedule. But it was then where I saw people in clubs, in the bigger, back then it was the Copacabana and the Tunnel. I didn't make it to Studio 54. I'm not that old, but some big dance floors that to this day they have some recognition in the party scene. I saw people making money, right? I saw people, whether there was the bartender or the guy at the door, and I saw the promoters. Who were the promoters? The promoters were people who brought more people to the club, more people to the party, that got paid for every single head that came under your guest list, who said, hey, I'm here for Danny Nice. Danny Nice was my promoter's name. Every promoter had a cool name. Danny Nice was mine. So, hey, I'm here for Danny Nice's guest list. And so I knew that there was an opportunity for me to make money while I'm partying. Guess what? And that just became, the entryway to failure in a way, because I'm like, yeah, I'm going to give out my flyers in Times Square at 3 a.m. It's freezing, but I'm going to, get a lot of people to my party and just see these flyers fly, across, or like, in the middle of the slush. And I'm like, oh, that's one less person that gets to use my name when they go to the party. And that was failure to the max.
Gotcha.
I needed to find a better way. In a way, I was spamming unsuspected passersby with my invitation, just shoving it in their face. And they were like, maybe they'll take it, because I'm annoying, or because, they're respectful. And then they just throw it out. I was spamming people, giving them what they didn't want at the time, where they didn't want to be bothered, in a most obnoxious way. And I knew it. That's when I said, you know what? Remember those chat rooms? Remember those websites? Oh, yeah, nightclubcity.com. Oh, yeah, clubplanet.com. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to scan. Remember the scan? I'm going to scan my invitation, and I'm going to publish it in these chat rooms. And guess what happened? That's when things started to just like happen. My phone was ringing. People wanted to know, where's the party at? I was promoting now not just one party, but 3 parties in one night at different locations in Manhattan, where at the end of the night, I would go cash in here, cash in there, cash in there, go have a shot here for free, meet some chicks, then go, that was the life. That was the life. And I did that for 4 years, just making it happen. Danny Nice became sort of known in the party scene. And that brought also some heartaches.
So was this as a business for you? Was it actually set up as a business, or you just basically had relationships with each one of them and then you got paid on the back end commissions?
Right. So there were different deals, right? So there were some big time promoters, right? And I like to introduce myself when I see somebody at the party who's getting attention, or it's exhibiting some sort of success that I want to know about. I go and I introduce myself, right? That's the very, to this day, I've forged really meaningful, long-lasting relationships by saying, hey, I'm Danny, selfie, okay, bye. And then nurturing that. But that was me back then. I would introduce myself. I introduced myself to some big promoters that I used to get to work underneath of them, right? So obviously they would take some of my pay, and that was the structure of the New York party scene. I mean, to this day, is the pyramid, is the multi-level, and then I had a team. Then I had a team of, girls, passing out flyers, and I had a team of, guys, just, bombing the parking lot with flyers, things like that. Then I was online. So it became from like a gig a night to kind of like, let's just say a small operation where I, every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I would make some money, but then I still have my job in the daytime that I was able to score with some IDs that were in mind and some numbers that were in mind. That, knock on wood, I don't condone that behavior, but I needed to do that to make ends meet. And I got me a job at a advertising firm right on Broadway, where in the mornings I would get exposed to some persuasive copywriting, to some data analytics, right? And then at nighttime I get to do the guerrilla thing, where I learn other fundamentals that I would not be able to quantify as I do now, but the art of loyalty, right? Having people come back with your friends, with their friends, right? To identify who the top earners and the frequent buyers are, the frequent partiers, in this context, and go and introduce myself. Now I'm not just like a name on a flyer, a name on the website. Now I'm a real human being. Hey, come see me if you need anything else, right? With a smile on my face, with a little, a smirk in my face. Say, hey, if you need anything else, even if it's an extracurricular,
Yeah.
thing that you need. I'll point you the right direction, and now have
What
people
you're saying is
coming
point of
back and coming
contact.
back and coming back. That was weaving into like the digital, the guerrilla marketing, and the hey, thanks for using my list, but please come back. And I'll give you a reason why to come back. I'll make you feel special and come out here and greet you and get to make you come back. So that is in essence part of what I do now. I specialize in retention strategies to help e-commerce brands, influencers, course creators have a person, acquire a new customer, but then guess what? At the end of that funnel, top of funnel, at the end of that funnel, guess what? There's another pillar called retention that a lot of brands are not paying attention to. A lot of influencers are missing the mark. They're like, oh, conversion. But retention is probably the most powerful one because they can come back in an organic way. You don't have to advertise to those folks. The folks that you have converted into your brand ambassadors, they're the one amplifying your message. And that's in essence what I now companies pay me for.
So you use the same formula that you did kind of in the nightclub business, and basically they come and then you connect with them. Is that the model?
It's the principle. It's the concept, right? It's and again, we're at the beginning of this podcast, we spoke about some timeless concepts, right? In marketing, some of which will never change. Perceived value and the exchange of a monetary currency for labor, right? Those will never change, right? Whether we're here or in the metaverse, that's never going to change, right? So loyalty became retention, right? Retention. So
Sure.
I work with brands who need to step it up a notch when it comes to retention.
Sure. So when you look at the model that you're having the conversation with, and somebody that's in there, it's an e-commerce business, right? Do you like them to have multiple products, multiple items, or do you like a single item?
I like multiple ones because it's I think my mind, I think my brain is trained that way. I did there's a gap in between my digital renaissance, if you will, where for 4 years I did marketing for a multinational nutrition company, very successful company, is still around this day, but they were only promoting one brand of products, right? It was the weight loss shakes and the energy drinks, and I got bored just talking about the same thing over and over and over and over. So I like the variety. Whereas I don't have to have one client specifically, selling urban outwear on Shopify, but I get another, team who is selling solar systems, across the nation, in both languages. So I like the variety because I get to learn from each vertical and apply some of those timeless concepts that will never change, but they change inside of that vertical. The messaging and the target audience, etc. Those things change, but the sequence of attention, conversation, conversion, and then retention, that doesn't change. So I love the variety. That was a kind of long-winded answer, but there are some other niches that I will never touch as well.
Yeah, I think retention is very interesting conversation. I think that if you're going to have a business that has retention, you need to have something that has a reoccurring. So, for example, a membership that they stay in, that they get the value over and over again. When it comes to e-commerce, being in e-commerce myself, I spent many years in e-commerce. What I found, and I think maybe you could agree with this, is that you can go in with a catalog way of doing things. Just say I'm in a niche, or like, I'm in home kitchen or something like that, right? Or I am in hunting, and you would stay in that. But then the other idea is that sometimes people have one product, and I think that retention it doesn't really matter. And this was something that I had a conversation with someone the other day, and that was, as long as you can sell them something else, whatever you have, eventually they may come by and buy another one from you, or their product, whatever they have, I don't want to say they use the word break, but I guess it could break. You need to get another one. But I think that retention has a lot to do with, can you get somebody to have a form of transaction with you? And that may be reading something that you have. They may be buying something as an accessory. That might be buying an event. Whatever that is, to keep those people stuck to you is what's going to retain them. That's why a lot of like giveaways work in your local what's it called, your personal customers. If you do giveaways in there, you keep them sticky to you. So what are some things in retention that you like to do that keep things sticky for them? What are some things that you like to do?
Yes. So I recently was invited this past week to an e-commerce marketing rockstar summit where some of the people who I admire have happened to be speaking at, and I got asked to speak about retention, right? And so loyalty programs, right? If we're going to dive into retention, I believe that loyalty programs are, by definition, retention programs, right? And you and I belong to many. We might not be so easily, we might not be able to list every single one, because there are those loyalty programs that are subliminal that we belong to and we don't even know it, right? But we all belong to some sort of loyalty program, whether it's a credit card giving you miles, or Starbucks giving you points, or an e-commerce brand, where you get to acquire points as you shop and shop more, right? An airline, right? Loyalty programs are so powerful for retention, and because of two things. First, they work, and they work magnificently for somebody who is data driven, as we are nowadays. We all have to be data driven, and those data points that we pay the most attention to is lifetime value, right? How much is one person going to spend with you? Some say it's in a year. I say lifetime because it's called lifetime value, no annual value. But in a lifetime, how much is that person going to expect or represents, right? In dollar signs. And an average order value, right? So if we increase an average order value in 2019, we only increased the average order value for the Shopify brand from $30 to $35, and that was magnificent. That $5 increase was what drove this brand to go from 90K in 1 year to 218 the following year, because of loyalty. So putting those two together, lifetime value, it rewards the frequent buyer and the top spenders, right? When we go in and we have a trip, and the person in front of us gets the upgraded hotel room, or the first dips at finding their seat at at the airline, we're like, wait a second, what do they do to deserve that, right? We're immediately comparing. So that's another thing. It does so much to the data, to the numbers, as well as to the human mind. We want to be part of something greater than ourselves. We want to be important. We want to be recognized, right? And loyalty programs give that, that VIP, that membership, that club-like feel, where you and I feel special. Oh, you have a club member? Oh yeah, come here, sir. And other people don't. So loyalty programs is that's my bread and butter. That is what we build, and we build these tailor-made to what is going on in that vertical, in that specific Shopify account, in that specific Google Analytics account. What's going on there? How can we reward the top spender and incentivize frequent buyers, right? And guess what? It reduces a metric that we're so aware about. Cost per acquisition, right? When LTV and AOV increase and the cost per acquisition decreases, the cost per
how many transactions?
Right, then that brands love it, because it's they don't have to know all these mathematical equations to see that the end result is now that they have more frequent buyers, they're buying more, and that they're they're spending less to acquire a new customer. Why? Because is the VIP members who are acquiring new customers for you, because they get rewarded for that. So now loyalty programs that are tailor-made to increase LTV, AOV, and decrease cost per acquisition, that is my bread and butter. That is what I swim in every single day for brands of all sizes.
How many transactions do you like to see an e-commerce store for it to make it worthy, or not worthy, but to make it worth it? How many transactions do you think that they need to do in their e-commerce store?
You know, that's a good question. Although I don't count the transactions, I would look at the sales, right? So there's not a necessary number that they need to hit. They just need to have some sales, right? For me to go in and say,
well, I mean, it wouldn't be in the best interest to do somebody have a loyalty program if they do if they sell like two people a month. You're not really creating any volume, right?
Absolutely.
So what do you think?
And we've tried that. We've tried that, and we ran into walls immediately, almost.
Well, the relationship is too close, and so what ends up happening is you end up creating a program when there's small volume of people. The intimacy is very high, so you end up having to create a program, and then since it's so high in intimacy, people start complaining very closely, and you're like, well, we'll just switch this, and then really you're making a custom thing for that one person. Yes. So to do these type of things, which is true, how I mean, is 100 items sold a month? What do you like to see so that you can get enough people coming through it, where it's enough people being your number one buyers and things like that?
So here it is, because a lot of our clients, their average offer value, could go from $300 kit on a vitamin combo to a lot less than that, right? So what I like to see is at least a brand that is hitting the $10,000 mark, right? I mean, that's not, a lot of these e-commerce brands, if they're taking 25 to 30% profit, that's hitting the average line, right? So $10,000 is not a whole lot. I want to see a brand that is not grassroots, that is not bootstrapping themselves, or it's not a startup, because, hey, guess what? We love startups. I've worked with startups before, but they require so much energy, time, enthusiasm, money, right, to push, right, like now, up a steep hill, right, that if you let off, guess what, that rock is gonna just smash you. So I love startups, not because I love working with them, but because they're the essence of an entrepreneur. I support as much as I could, maybe through an interview, maybe through some exposure, some product, or reviews, that sort of thing. But I like to see a brand that's hitting at least $10,000 in sales, right? That tells me there's some skin in the game, right? He or she may have maybe a credit card, to allocate some funds. And now there's a little bit of a fire. It might not be a huge fire, but there's a little bit of fire that I can come with my jet engine fuel and spray it. And that fire is going to increase. Why? Because if we do things right, if I'm sold on the company's values, and he or she are also sold on my processes, right, and they're coachable, then that's when the magic happens, and we can take a $10,000 a month to and above. And I don't like to throw all these. We will 10x your sales. But chances are that will become profitable for the brand and for us as well. We take pride on data, right? Not smoke and mirrors. And when we get to capture this data and present it in a conference as a case study, guess what? That's what people want to see. And one case study can turn into 10 hot leads that you get to handpick which ones you're going to work with. So very, very keen on that.
Very cool, man. So How do people find you, Danny?
Oh man, people find me all over the internet. No, I'm just kidding. So I took a step back from, being so omnipresent, right? So that, that kind of diluted my efforts. I want to be on TikTok. I'm not even on, I'm probably on TikTok with an account, but I'm not there. I don't look for me on TikTok. I am online, DannyMonzon.com. That has been, my domain, because guess what? Companies come and go. My name is probably going to stay the same for a while. So DannyMonzon.com, and here on Facebook. That's where I hang out, live, and play.
Appreciate it, man. Well, appreciate you being on the Moved Entrepreneur Evolved podcast, specialists in automations and in retention. And this is awesome, man. Thanks a lot for being here. Appreciate it. Today's episode. Remember to like and subscribe. Also, remember to go back. There's amazing guests that have been on this podcast. Be sure to check them out as well and like those podcasts as well. Thanks a lot, Danny, for coming on. Take care.
Jason,
brother.
Thank you so much. Until next time.
If you like this episode, make sure you smash the like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just like Nike is to athletes, Moved is to entrepreneurs.